level up.
All right, let's open the gates.
Open them up.
Open the gates. Let them in. Let them in.
It's aggressive for a Friday morning.
It's a Friday PA day morning, so I'm still trying to get my energy up. To anybody who's listening or watching who isn't in Canada, I don't know if PA days are a thing everywhere. Is that just a thing that people call it everywhere? Our kids are all home today. That's pretty much what that means. So that's fun.
Yeah.
But in any case.
Yeah. So we might have some connection issues, unfortunately, because they might sneak onto computers or technology, but we are going to try our best.
They might sneak into the picture. You might see like a head pop in from the side, but that's okay.
That too.
Keeps it fun.
They'll be buyers or something like that.
She'll be like there's only one of them.
No, I'm thinking of Charlotte, because if you guys saw Danielle's reel yesterday, if you do follow him on Instagram, if you don't, you should, because he posted a really funny reel about our youngest pretending to be a podcast. I guess she's a level up podcaster.
It was better work than anything we've ever put out there. So I feel like we should start hiring her for voice work or something.
She sounded kind of British in it. It was funny.
She did. That's a thing our kids do.
Yeah, maybe. She's like, please come. Anyway, it was cute.
I couldn't tell if it was a recruiting ad or an ad for new clients. She kind of came up with a hybrid.
She put it all together. It was like perfect. It was
in
so
12
succinct.
seconds too. Like it's a better job than we haven't even been able to introduce our podcast yet. And we're 2 minutes in. So
I know we take like hours. Anyway, welcome to week 9 of the OTB 100. This week we are doing buyer presentation. If you missed last week, we did listing presentation. We did a little bit of a role play. And we did get a lot of feedback from you guys that it was a really helpful session. So we're happy to hear that. And this week, although it's not going to be a full-on role play in terms of the entire session, we're definitely going to incorporate a lot of the typical questions you typically will find you get from buyers when you first start working with them. So if you want to go into the chat and put in some common questions that you'd like us to just kind of work through as we go through this presentation, that would be great, because we want to make this as helpful as possible for you guys. So contribute. And I'm going to share my screen.
Do it up. All you.
Okay. So the first part of this session is just showing you our buyer presentation. And what I'm going to do actually is I am going to go in the chat myself and put in the buyer presentation. So if you guys want to download it and just kind of mirror this for your own use, you are more than able to do that. So I'm just doing that quickly.
You haven't shared it yet though, right? Because I still don't see anything.
No.
Okay.
No,
this is like the ultimate teaser. It's coming, people. Keep those eyeballs on the screen.
Okay. So that's being shared, as well as our discovery worksheet for buyers when we first start working with them. So this is something else we'll go through, but if you want to take this and use it, it is all yours. Mm-hmm. So there you go. It's in the chat.
And as always, we've got Darren's asking, the listing presentation. Did we share that last week? Or did we not?
I don't think so. Let me see if I can go in and get it quickly. If not, I will. Yeah, if you just want to send me an email afterwards, I'd be happy to share that as well. Let me take a look here. I'll do it after, just in the interest of time. Just send me an email. Yeah.
So to anybody who's been in the industry a while, just starting or yet to start, I think it goes without saying that this is one of, if not the most challenging times to be working with buyers. And so this is a really important topic to go through. As you know, if you've been in the other sessions, we've really tried to lay the groundwork for how you're going to plan your business out. And now we're into the real nitty gritty of things and the tangible deliverables and way that you do that with clients that you may already have or clients that you're trying to get. And so the context of this particular, what would we call it, an episode, this segment? Session, that's a good one. Is for the most part under the assumption that you are yet to land the client, right? This is where you're meeting with leads. This is where you're educating people who are still potentially choosing which agent they want to work with. And we're going to, I guess, for obvious reasons, put it in the context of the market we're in right now. But obviously, this will relate to any market, good, bad, buyer, seller, or otherwise. So let's jump right in. The buyer guide, buyers
Right.
apostrophe
Buyer's
S.
guide. Buyer's guide. Yeah, because it's their guide, right?
It is. It's not ours.
That's proper grammar. I thought for a second my grammar was wrong, and I've been sending this out to clients for years. Anyway, so this is something that we do review with buyers when we first meet with them, but it's also something that we typically email them prior to the meeting, either whether it's a Zoom meeting or we're getting back to more in-person meetings. So it might be that. But we like to provide this to them because, again, similar to the listing presentation, we don't want to be going through this page by page, word by word. This isn't what buyers really want to talk about when they want to start talking about their home search process. But this is great information, a great resource for them to use as they go through the process. So this is what we've put together, and yeah.
And I guess one thing I'll throw in there too is you can see this is Katie's here. Like this is the guide you use, right? Like this is the real deal. And so as much as the stuff we talk about here is in many ways the pieces that will form a buyer's guide, like mine is similar, but more my brand, more my, the way I speak and all that. And so these, just like the listing presentation, they're not meant to be cut and paste jobs for people, right? These are meant to be, to help you inspire some ideas, to definitely, take things that work for you and make them your own, as they say, as American Idol used to say. But this is going through one real life version of what we as a brokerage do. That is your brand. That is what you put out there because it reflects the way that the clients you're after, the things that you say, and the services that you provide as well.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So just a little bit of an introductory page. And I like to sprinkle little testimonials throughout my buyer guide just to prove that I've worked with a lot of people, that how I work. It just really reinforces who you are and what you represent as an agent. So you'll see that as we go. A little bit about your brokerage. That's a really important component about it. And again, this isn't something you're going to read word for word with your clients. It just might be something that they are interested in. So of course, provide it because it is helpful.
But it does set a good stage though. Like it's like the prologue of a book. Is it the prologue at the beginning? I guess so. Yeah, the prologue's at the end. Yeah. It's giving them information that is really high level FAQ stuff just about who they're about to talk to and where they come from before you get into the specifics. And that's important most of the time, unless you don't want to represent that, unless that's not what makes you who you are and that's not something you want to talk about. That's okay.
Well, yeah, unless it's like you have a team, like that could be about your team. So you could.
It's not always the brokerage. Yeah, absolutely.
Mix and match. Yeah. So do you want to talk about the process?
Sure. So similar to the listing presentation, everything about what we do and what we try to do is setting expectations and laying out what people will come to experience if and when they work with us. And in another sense, what's really important to us is that this will go to them, as Katie said, this will go to them ahead of time before they even meet us. And a lot of the information they get is going to be valuable to them whether or not they choose to work with us. So like this particular process, it's laying out a process that should apply to virtually any realtor they might choose. But at the same time, inherently, by laying this out there, if they are interviewing multiple realtors and they're not seeing the same organization or things that they saw somewhere else are left out or not covered, it does call into question, whether everybody's on the same page about what the process is. So we try to lay things out here in order. The first thing we put on here is get a pre-approval from the bank and establish your budget. And notice we put that in there before you're even picking a realtor. And it's not a necessity, but it's what we recommend in the process because it just helps drive conversations and expectations when you do start the process of even selecting a realtor. Interviewing and selecting a realtor, that's where we are right now. But once that's done and once you've chosen us and we're ready to move on, here's all the stuff we're going to do. Then we're going to, and maybe during the interview, we might start talking about what their expectations are. But once you've selected a realtor, that's when you get down to brass tacks in business. And you're going to determine the requirements for a new home. What are the things you're looking for? What are the must-haves? What are the nice-to-haves? What are the game-stopping, not going to happen stuff? And once that's laid out, you may put a step in here that says, begin getting listings or start a search process or things like that. For us, we kind of couple it all into, that's when you're going to start the process of seeing homes, which is sort of multi-definitional. That was such a long non-word. Means a lot of things. But we basically, the process of searching is what comes next. And then once you find a place that works, you make an offer when you're ready. That obviously could happen more than once. This could be a rinse repeat thing. But in terms of the process, you do that. Then we get down to the paperwork, the negotiating, trying to hash out a deal. Finalizing the offer here is kind of synonymous with finalizing the deal, getting it accepted. Whether there's conditions, people need to understand that would be what comes next. Once all that's done, once you're firm, you want to make sure that you've got a real estate lawyer, and then you just start getting ready to be excited. You prepare for your move and you move in. So these are noticeably high level, vague, kind of topical steps. These aren't like, okay, you're going to prepare for a move, good luck, right? Obviously, each one of these steps comes with us involved at a greater degree, but we also, as much as you want to set expectations, you also want to simplify, because this is literally the first page these people are seeing, and it's already a potentially overwhelming process. So the idea is simplifying, but also giving as much information as possible.
Yeah. And one thing I might add at this point, just given the market currently and how it's been over the last few years, is just the landscape that we're dealing with right now with competition. And this makes it look pretty simple. You make an offer when you're ready, and then you negotiate and you have paperwork and finalize an offer. That's not that easy. And I think we all know that when we're working with buyers, especially with a limited budget, we're probably seeing 40, 50 houses making 7, 8 offers before they finally get that. And, before we got on here, Daniel and I were talking about that, and just setting that expectation ahead of time is so important, because people are going to burn out in their second offer because they didn't realize it was going to be this difficult. So it's really striking a fine balance, because obviously you don't want to scare the crap out of them and make them not want to go through the process, but this is what it takes. And you're there to guide them. You're there to hopefully calm them down, make sure they don't get too emotional over certain properties. But it's really important to establish that ahead of time, the landscape of the market, so that they know what they're getting into prior to actually seeing it for themselves and feeling it.
And also that you know what you're getting into, right? Because you need to understand if their expectations are eons away from reality, or how is this discussion going to progress to the point where you can enter a tough situation, and you shouldn't walk away from something just because somebody's got misguided expectations. But the more you're able to lay that out, I think we've done 1 or 2 podcast episodes specifically on managing expectations and dealing with these sorts of situations. So definitely this is your time to really talk about the environment. And as Katie said, this is something that we send out before we meet with them. So this is something that allows people to give some context to a greater conversation, which is the buyer presentation. It allows them to maybe get some questions together. And it also becomes a reference guide for them once we start working with them, or if and when we start working with them, that becomes their I don't know what you call yours, the buyer's guide. I call mine the buyer's playbook. It's like a handbook. It's like something that they've got with them a lot of the time to help them kind of, okay, where are we at the process? Okay, what do I want to know? What does this look like? So, which we'll see, because we haven't gone to the next page yet. So,
yeah. Can you just keep an eye on the chat? I don't want to open it up because I'm sharing my screen, so I don't know if it shows the chat, but if there's any questions coming in that might be relevant to what we're talking about.
There is a very nice compliment from Renata, so thank you for that.
Oh,
but it's
why don't you read it out loud?
But it's not a question. So
okay,
maybe you saw it and you just wanted me to read that.
No, seriously, no. Okay. So this next section here is more to do with the typical buyers I work with. It's a lot of first-time home buyers. So I outline the incentives and just the programs available to them. This might not be for you guys. You might be working with investors or pre-con people, and there's a whole other slew of information that you can provide to them in a guide. Or if you really want to go all out, you could actually have different guides depending on the type of buyer you're working with. But for myself, I find for the majority of the buyers I'm working with, they're first-time home buyers. So I really like to lay out the incentives. And if it happens to be somebody that's not a first-time home buyer, I usually just take this part out because it's not relevant to them. But I do like to let them know what the first-time home buyer tax credit is, and just the first-time home buyer, the land transfer tax, and how all that works. So just to understand what it is that they get, the home buyer's plan, which involves your RRSPs and being able to take out from your RRSPs up to $70,000 per couple. The land transfer tax, which I just talked about. If you're in Toronto, there's also that additional portion to keep in mind, so that can add up. And then just a table here for the land transfer. And this could apply to both first-time home buyers and non-first-time home buyers. And you can see there's obviously a significant difference when it comes to whether you're a first-time home buyer or not. So this kind of goes from 500,000, which is kind of hard in our market right now to even get, but all the way up to $1.1 million. So it really gives everybody a good sense of what it is that they have to spend in addition to purchasing a home. This is the biggest cost, and it's a cost that's often either overlooked or misunderstood. A lot of people say, oh, can I just wrap this into my mortgage? You can't wrap it into your mortgage. You have to have this extra liquidity to actually pay on closing. So it is a big chunk of money, especially when we're talking about a big chunk of money for the down payment. So it's something that's important for them to keep in mind.
And you need to understand this stuff, right? Anything you put out there, you need to understand. It's not as simple as cutting and pasting a spreadsheet from a website, because people will ask you questions. One of the most commonly asked questions we get is, what do I need? Like, how much do I need? And I know some realtors will say, talk to your mortgage broker or things like that, but you want to be, you are their professional when it comes to every step of the process, short of actually giving them a pre-approval and understanding the mechanics of a mortgage. The costs that go into purchasing a home, the risks you have, all the things that are in your presentation need to be things that you understand front to back. So it's not complicated stuff, but it's a lot of stuff. And if it seems like a lot for you, imagine how much it seems for someone who's never done it before. So just remember that when you go into this, and be prepared to be called out on anything you put in front of them.
Yeah.
So another thing we like to put out there is taking a step back. The whole process, this buyer's guide, whether it's a first-time home buyer or not, we go under the assumption that people don't know anything. And I think we make the assumption often that the stuff we say and the stuff we talk about every day is just known to people, or the stuff that's in the media is, well, there was a story about this, so everybody knows it. And an MLS listing is a great example of something that we see so much of. And in a lot of cases, at least in our case, we will send these out often to our clients, and they might not know, at a high level, they might not know at all what they're looking at, but they might not know that a lot of the information they need is right in front of them when we send it to them. And so we like to put in the guide, again, whether they work with us or not, here's something you're probably going to be seeing a lot of. And here is, here are the key things to focus on when you're there, and here's what they mean. And this, obviously, in this visual here, it's a picture of it with some highlights. So this does merit some further discussion if they've got questions, right? We're not going to just cover an already busy page with a million little post-it notes and bullet points and things like that. But we highlight the key things for different types of properties that people should be looking for. How many washrooms does it have, and how many pieces are they, and what floor are they on? The frontage is important to some people. The size of the lot, the taxes is a question we get often. Parking information, the type of basement. This is, again, totally up to you. There might be a focus on room sizes or things under the extras, whatever it might be. This is an example of one that already sold, I believe, because I could see the percent difference is 99%, meaning this has already sold.
And 47 days on market.
40,
That's another thing to highlight. Is
God,
important.
this doesn't happen anymore. Man, I wish
this
I
is
bought
a couple
this
years ago.
I can't see the price. What did this one go for? Can you scroll up
This
just a
is
little
one
bit?
that my clients, they bought for 115.
Oh yeah. So imagine this place today. But anyway, but this is an example of a freehold property, and like Katie was saying, with first time home buyers, or investors or commercial or whatever, if you've got packages geared to particular people, you would put what is specific to them. I've seen packages where maybe you've got 3 or 4 pages in a row that outline the different. Does this one have the condo one next, or this one's just
yes?
This? Okay, so
it says the condos too.
Yeah, so this is freehold, and then you follow it up with, okay, we might be looking at condos, and here's the nuances and the differences that flow from a condo to a freehold. It's the same idea, piece of paper wise, but look at how the placement of things are different. Look at the different types of information like pet permission and maintenance fees and what's included. These are the things that are important, or might be, to your particular client. You don't even need to highlight anything, but this is your opportunity to walk people through what you're going to be doing, again, in greater detail, so that every time you send one, you're not getting a question saying, where do I find this? Or does this tell me the taxes? Or how do I know this? If you've already gone through it and you've established what's most important to your clients, that's really what's key. You're able to highlight the most important things to them right up front, so they know what they're looking for.
Exactly. I think there was another question or another compliment in the chat.
It is a question. What do you recommend as the best way to have this basic understanding, given we're not mortgage finance people? Okay, so that's back to, I guess, the home buyer incentives or transfer taxes.
Sorry.
Honestly, I think the best way to have the basic understanding is to just do your research. And a visual like this is deliberately there to simplify it for our clients, but also to simplify it for ourselves, right? So we won't put something out there that we don't understand, because inherently that would make it very hard to explain it to somebody. But put it out there in the terms that make sense to you. And if you're confused about things, or if you can think of scenarios you're going to run into where you don't know the answer, don't be afraid to ask questions, right? Like leverage the people around you, if you have a manager, broker of record, if you have peers, colleagues, in a lot of cases, online communities. But do your research and just make sure you're comfortable. Like this stuff, as complicated as it is with the number of different scenarios there could be, it does come back to just a few basic principles when it comes to things like land transfer tax. These columns really outline the basic principles with it, right? Are you in Toronto or not? So that will create 2 different scenarios of which taxes you may or may not be paying. Are you a first-time home buyer or not? So is there a credit that might apply? And then things like understanding how...
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Oh, did you hear that? Did I go?
Yeah.
Somebody couldn't hear what I said. Was that my phone? Somebody can't hear me.
I don't know.
If my computer can't hear me, can you hear me?
I
think the basic answer to that is, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that, like, you can also, like, there's so many mortgage brokers that want to team up with agents. And, if you can find a mortgage broker that you seem to get along well with, that's a great resource for you as well. Because if you're teaming up and you have somebody that you can rely on to ask these questions, it's really helpful. You'll learn along the way. But again, like as Daniel said, going back to your broker of record and other agents in your brokerage, just to kind of understand it, you'll pick a lot of things up pretty quickly.
And one good point, just from what you just said, the learning along the way is a lot of these guides are growing documents based on the experiences that you have, right? When you start, you're not going to know all the questions. We still don't know all the questions. As the market changes, the questions people have are different. And we will adjust this and all the other documents we have to reflect the most important information at that point in time. So, if the government were to introduce a new tax or a new incentive or something like that, it's probably going to be something people want to know about. A, we have to educate ourselves on it, but B, we're going to want to put it in here once we know it's something that people want to know. So you're learning along with your clients.
And to your point, like I should really update these MLS listings because this makes it seem as though it's super easy to find a house right now.
Honestly.
And it just goes back to that, that continued conversation about educating your clients on the current market conditions. So definitely something to
It's
update.
true. I'd look at your presentation and be like, I want that one. That's what I want. I want to spend that for that.
Oh, it's only this much money for this
Under
condo.
ask,
Anyway,
47 days on the market. That's spectacular.
Yeah.
Anyway,
there's another question there.
it was a thank you.
Oh, all right. You're welcome. Okay, so the next part here is just a few pages on frequently asked questions. And this could really help maybe some of you newer agents that might not know the answers to certain questions, but definitely the most common questions we get, obviously, what's the first step in buying a home? What is a down payment? A lot of people don't know the difference between a down payment and the deposit, which is due within 24 hours of acceptance of an offer. So just to try to, explain those terms is really important. How much money do I need for a down payment? That's usually a conversation that your client will have with their mortgage broker. But again, it's important to just kind of know the basics and what's involved in that. So mortgage loan insurance, if you have less than 20% down, you must pay mortgage loan insurance. That's something that can be rolled into the mortgage if you don't want to pay it all up front. But again, the basics that you just have to be aware of. Difference between deposit and down payment. How long does it take to buy a home? Again, this is a conversation that is more market driven, but also your clients and their own timeline as well. And that's something that you understand with them when you start asking them questions. But you might start working with buyers that have like a 6-month timeline, which isn't obviously ideal for us, but it is what it is. And you kind of start slow, where there's a lot of other people that need to buy something within like a month. And that obviously requires a lot of immediate and frequent showings in order to find them the right place. Should I sell or buy first? That's a big one. And it's also very market driven. Conditions. That's a very important component, obviously, of an offer, and just understanding the conditions that are available to clients, as well as how it typically works. The extra fees, in addition to purchasing a home, the deposit, land transfer tax, the legal fees, that kind of stuff. What's a bidding war? So those are all, and you accumulate over time the different questions and common questions you get from your clients. But for us, those are the more common ones that we typically get. Next.
Okay. So moving checklist. This is another kind of example of a piece you might want to put in there that just helps add resources up front to people. And we talk a lot about this in marketing talks as well, and in being able to provide people with value before you have the business, right? And so again, this is something that somebody might have. And I think we had a question, it might have been in the last session, talking about what if somebody else steals this, or what if another agent works with them and they use your stuff? You know what? It is what it is. Like, that's okay. Because first of all, this doesn't add an incremental cost or time to us. It's just our ability to show our value. And that's what the point of the buyer presentation is earning somebody's trust through the value you provide. And so a moving checklist is a great example of that, where once you've already bought the home, not only does this provide them value now, but it reinforces that our relationship with the buyer doesn't end the moment we get a piece of paper signed, right? So this is laying out there, here's all the stuff that you're going to want to think about, because closings now, some of them are super quick, and people get really wrapped up, I think, in the can I afford it and the conditions, rightfully so, but they lose sight of all the stuff that happens once they've actually bought the place. So the idea here is trying to give them a long list of the stuff they need to think about today, so that they're not overwhelmed at any point in this process, inclusive of after the deal has already been done. Oh, we hit the
I forgot
mute.
I forgot I was muted. The next is just trusted professionals. And this really comes in handy right at the end when you finalize a deal and your client has to book a home inspection now, or they have to find a lawyer, especially with condo properties, they need to review the status right away. So a lot of times, like, everybody's like really needing this information really quickly. So you can just say, go back to the buyer's guide or resend them the buyer's guide. Here is all my list of trusted professionals I've worked with in the past. Make sure they're people that you've worked with in the past, because, you want to make sure you're giving people quality options. And again, make sure you're giving people options. You don't want to just say, use this person or use this person, because that could be considered potentially a conflict of interest. You want to give people choice and allow them to make the decision.
I thought you said you want to give them quality options, which we do.
Options.
We want to give them lots of options, but yeah, options as well.
Options is important.
Yeah. And so referrals is, again, another resource and your ability to help build some trust and comfort in your clients. If you do have a larger list of clients, definitely make sure they know that they're being asked to be a referral. People love, for the most part, when they've had a good experience with you, to be asked if they would be a referral for you. But when you can, and when you reach the point in your career where you've got a good group of clients to draw from, also try to tie the type of client they are to the type of buyer that you're dealing with, right? So if you know this is a first-time home buyer presentation specifically, try to put the first-time home buyers you've worked with in there, because they're going to be able to speak the language of the person who's calling them or emailing them. If it's commercial, so on and so forth. But the idea here is to give people the ability to reach out to others and see if you can actually back up what you're saying and what you've done. And often people just seeing a list of referrals get comfort that there are referrals. I don't know how many people actually reach out, but to have them there and to know that you've got a whole cheering section behind you of people who have already lived through what you've done is great. And for those of you who haven't had clients, that's a question we get as well. Well, how do I do referrals if I've only done one deal or things like that? It's up to you. I still believe that having character references and people that you've worked with who understand how you do things, if they know what the context of the referral is, you can consider doing that. It depends on your comfort level. Some people might think it's weird to put referrals who, well, this was my professor in high school and I got an A in calculus, so I should put them on the list. It's not that. But if it's somebody who was a client of yours in another industry, and it speaks to your work ethic and the ability that you have to whatever, have a fiduciary duty to your client, put them on there and then replace them when you get somebody who is more in this industry. So there's no rule book to this. It's more just what you're comfortable with and the message you want to put out there.
Yeah, exactly. And then finally are the forms. And this is something that's obviously very important that your client has an awareness of. And it just allows you to just guide into that, or I guess, slide into that conversation with, especially with the initial forms, the working with the realtor buyer rep agreement. This is an area where a lot of agents get uptight about, like, oh my God, how am I going to get them to sign the BRA? I don't know what I'm going to do. I don't know how I'm going to approach it. If you've sent them the paperwork ahead of time, it's much easier conversation. And these are the forms that you'd sign. And this is a buyer representation agreement. Come up with a quick summary of what this represents. This is basically an agreement between you and I that says that I am going to represent you as the buyer and provide you with all of the options and work in your benefit, or something along those lines. But as long as you can summarize it in a really succinct way and make it seem as though it's not a scary document. This is what solidifies our working relationship together, just to make them more comfortable, because obviously, and another thing that I find makes people more comfortable with this is this outlines the responsibilities that I have to you as my buyer client. Just all the different ways. Why are you laughing at me?
I just thought this was going to be a role play we were doing, but now we don't have to do it.
Oh, no. We're still going to do it.
Okay. Okay.
Oh, you mean you want, okay. Well, I'm doing my side.
Good.
Sorry.
It's all good. Now I know what to say.
Anyway. All right. So yeah, buyer rep agreement, working with a realtor.
Now you're scrolling through.
Now I'm going to go through it. Sorry. No,
it's all good.
Well, I just think it's important to that's one area that I find a lot of agents get caught up with, and really, anyway, so we're going to go through a role play. Sorry about that.
We might. I don't know. I think we just did one.
Agreement of purchase and sale is an important one that they're aware of. Because a lot of times you're making an offer at the last minute and people are like, I don't know what this form is. Like, what are you sending me? And, you want to make sure that they understand it ahead of time. Confirmation of co-op, amendments, notice of fulfillment, all that kind of stuff. And this is kind of like a workbook. If your client wants to print it out and make notes, then that's great. I mean, maybe they won't, but.
Well, I use the notes though as something they bring on showings with us. So when we're on showings and they want to, I mean, they can also do it if we print out. It depends on how you do your business, right? Like again, the other thing with this whole presentation is, I mean, with the exception of the forms, which are the forms, you can see that this is all, like everything we put out there is an extension of the branding stuff. So everything on here is consistent with the other material we have. The background pictures on all of these particular pages are listings we've had. So there's reasons to, I guess, put everything out there visually as well. But the information is what's most important here. And someone did ask it. Yes, all of these are recorded. This will be available as both a podcast, a YouTube video, and in Real Estate Road as well for viewing later. If you've already left or if you have to go or if you got here late.
Yeah, we'll send out the video recording afterwards this weekend sometime.
Yeah.
So all right, that's role play time. Are you ready?
I don't know. It depends. So are we having people give you questions or you've got all kinds of questions? And where are we? What are we doing?
I have a couple questions, but again, go into the chat and tell me, anybody can tell me if they want to ask a particular question that they've run into in the past. But where are we? Do you want to just pretend we're on Zoom? I'm the buyer, you've gone through the listing presentation or the buyer presentation with me.
You know, what's great is that we don't even have to pretend we're on Zoom.
Because we already are.
It's true. Amazing. Okay, so I've sent this over to you and now, I've sent this over to you and you've got some questions, I guess. So this won't be like last week where the entire presentation was a role play. Is this more just you'll throw a question at me and I'll answer it and then we'll go back to the chat?
Correct.
It's up to you.
Are you ready? Okay. So thanks, Daniel, for all the information. One thing that a lot of my friends have been telling me about is agents give cash back on their commissions when we find a house. Is that something you do?
You know what? We hear this a lot. And thanks again for taking the time to meet with me, first of all. It's you jumped right into the good stuff there. But can I ask, is that something that is really important to you, like that particular aspect of things? This is something that you've heard about? Like what about that is it that you'd be
Well, I mean, I always could use more money. So, any way that I can get, Yeah,
no, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think ultimately the goal of every realtor, but definitely the work that I do, is to make sure that you are going to come out of this with the least money out of your pocket, right? I mean, it is, as you know, it is a super challenging market out there. And we do hear this question quite a bit. The short answer before I get into the long answer is I don't provide cash back. And I'm going to tell you why. First of all, the other thing that you might hear from people is that realtors that are representing buyer agents that are representing buyers are free. A lot of them say, I don't cost anything, right?
Yeah,
and
isn't that how it works?
And that's not how it works. I mean, I figured, well, if I'm giving you cash back and I'm free, then that would be a spectacular deal for you.
It would.
But I think for me, the key is really putting all the cards on the table early. So I'm glad you brought this up. We do get paid. It's by way of the seller. They pay commission to the brokerage that represents them. And then that commission gets shared, sometimes equally, sometimes not, between the buyer agent and the listing agent. So I'm compensated that way. And that compensation will vary from property to property. The first thing that I can tell you is in the buyer rep agreement that we're signing, as we talked about, or we will talk about, depending on where we're at in the conversation, I will not be holding you to any sort of static number that's on there, because different properties we see might be offering different amounts of commission. And my commitment to you is we're going to see whatever is a fit for you. And you need not be concerned about what they may or may not be offering. And that could impact my income on that end, but that's the prerogative of the seller. For me, the key here is I'm here to represent your interests and to make sure you hit every objective that we've laid out over the course of our conversation. And as I said, it is as challenging a time out there for buyers as it's ever been. And it's important to have somebody who is focused on only one thing, which is getting you the home that you're looking for at the price you're comfortable with the terms you want. And there's so many different factors that go into that you need to know that the person who's representing you has that duty to you, and full stop. So my goal is the same as yours, is bringing you that value you're looking for in dollars and cents at the end of the day. But I don't put that out there by way of rebating something after the fact. I don't want the value you see to be contingent on maybe paying too much for a home, because that's what, you might feel you have to do, or what some people might tell you to do. I'm going to make sure that you get the deal that is right for you at the terms that are right for you. So my value comes from the outcomes, is the best way to put it. Another way to put it in dollars and cents is, would you rather get $3,000 back, but overpay for a home without knowing by 10 or 20,000, right? For me, it's about, So it is a good question, and lots of people out there offer.
I'm fine with that. So, sometimes I'm like going on Kijiji a lot, and I see, private houses listed for sale. So you were saying before that if, they're not offering any commission, like, you'll just help me buy the house and then you don't get paid. Is that how it works?
It depends on what the ad is. We will see anything that interests you. And there are situations, it's a little more rare now, but there's situations where people might not be offering anything at all. It's my responsibility to show you anything that's out there that could be a fit for you. And it would be on me to discuss what the terms might be if it is a private seller. That's a risk that I take on in my business, but I can tell you once again that in no way would I steer you away from something that might be a fit for you. So if it is listed privately, it might not be on the MLS. So it might be something that you find in your travels and you send over to me. But part of our agreement is also anything that you do see or run into that you could be interested in, send that over to me and I'll make sure to get you all the information and set up showings and anything else that might be relevant to you.
Okay, cool. So if you're not going to do cash back, like, could you get me like a TV on closing? Like, I've seen these really nice 50-inch TVs that I've always dreamed of putting in my living room.
Could I get you a TV? Well, I know you were referred over to me from Julie, and I know she told you about the great closing gift that she got from me. So I try not to make that a part of my business that I go out there and advertise. I'm a bit about shock value and creating happiness through surprise. All I can say is I don't make part of my deals and part of my contracts, here's the gift you're going to get. It's nothing like that. But all I can say is that it is one of the great joys of my job to celebrate with my clients when it's all over.
All right. I like TVs, just so you know. It's just a little hint.
Duly noted.
Okay. All right. So, like, I know you showed me that buyer rep agreement. I don't know if I want to like tie myself down right now to a particular agent. I'm just kind of seeing what things are like and so do I have to sign that with you before we start working together, before we start seeing places? Because I'd really like to see this place, like, maybe in an hour. Could we do that?
Well, typically what I do, because we're having this conversation right now, this has been an opportunity to get to know each other and to establish a rapport. I am usually happy to, and I am in this case for a place that's an hour away, I will usually make sure that we can build on that rapport by, if we want to do one showing together and get an idea of the process together, that's okay. However, the point of the buyer rep agreement is to protect you as much or more as it is to protect me. And I think the misconception of that form is that this is something that is locking me into getting paid or something like that. And the reality of that form is that protects you and your interests with someone who is from day one and for a set amount of time committed to looking out for your best interests and doing everything in my power to ensure that you get the best experience possible. Without that being signed, you basically don't have the comfort that someone is looking out for you. Obviously, my role is to look out for everybody that I work with, but I like to ensure that my relationship with my clients is formalized for their benefit so that they don't have to think about what happens if this gets too tough, right? Again, this is such a complicated market out there that you want someone who's committed to working for you all the time, understands you, and that you never have to wonder about, well, what happens when this gets too hard? Because when somebody's not under contract, absolutely, a buyer can go and shop around and all that, but you'll never have the comfort that somebody's working in your best interests. And what that does is it protects you and your best interests. The terms on there are very clear. So there's nothing in there that talks about, surcharges or anything like that. That's not really a dollars and cents document as much as it is laying out the terms of our relationship, formalizing my responsibilities to you. And by all means, if you've got questions about that, I want to make sure you're comfortable with it before you do put pen to paper at all.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I'm thinking, my search, I know we talked about areas, and I know we were saying that it's really hard to get something for, $500,000 in Toronto. And that's my budget. So, I mean, will you drive, let's say if we want to go to Guelph or Cambridge, maybe Thunder Bay, could we do that?
My border ends at Nunavut, actually.
Oh, okay, great.
No, I think, as we establish your needs, what we talked about, the first thing that I want to be able to do is I want to give you an idea of what actually is selling for what in different areas. We need to get a comfort level about what you can actually afford right now. And I know that you're going through the pre-approval process, which is great. That's going to give us a little bit more of a perspective on where your true budget is. But with that comes the reality of what you can afford. So for me, I'm not about driving around and throwing darts to see what might work. I want to equip you with the information ahead of time. And to answer your question, if the answer to that is that, the only things you can afford that check all your must-haves are in regions that are outside of where I typically do my work, then it's in your best interest to allow me to refer you to a professional in one of those areas. And I do have colleagues in different areas that do great work and understand the area. Part of my duty to you is ensuring that, you have the knowledge you need to make the right decision, and you have an understanding from someone who understands the area, not just houses and not just prices, but somebody who's a professional in that particular area and works there, has boots on the ground. So the other side of that, though, is as we go through your needs and your wants, it might not always be a case of the region. If staying close to here is more important to you than a fourth bedroom, for example, we're going to explore all of that first and determine whether there are solutions where you want to be, if that's more important to you.
Right. Okay. Got it. Okay. I was going to ask another question. I forget.
It's because I'm long-winded.
Yeah.
It's by design. I drive people into a hypnotic trance until they just say, okay, I'll sign it.
Oh, man. Oh, gosh.
Ask away.
Another one that I wanted to ask. Yeah. So people are sending me questions, which is really great.
Okay, good. Yeah.
Yeah. People, I'm
nothing about termites, I hope.
Yeah. Okay. So I have a friend who, and actually when I went to an open house last week, Johnny Moneybags.
Oh, Johnny. Yeah. Johnny Moneybags. Yeah.
Yeah. He's
the guy that's got his that big van that's wrapped with all the dollar signs all over it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that $1 million smile.
Yes. Yeah. I heard he's really good.
He's everywhere. So good.
So I went to one of his open houses. He's got these mega giant open houses that have cocktail parties and dolphins in the pool. They're pretty good.
Yeah. I've been to one of those.
Yeah.
He's trained the dolphins too. They play. Have you seen them when they play the horns? They play his theme song, the Johnny Moneybags theme song.
Yeah, he's amazing. So anyway, so when I was talking to him, he told me that I should just work with him. And like, cause like I was kind of interested in the house. It seemed like a good fit. And he said it was way better for me to sign with him and make an offer with him as the listing agent than find another random agent that might not be as, be as talented in training dolphins. So just wondering if that might be a better route to go, is just to work with the listing agents, especially Johnny Moneybags.
Especially Johnny Moneybags, yeah. And so why did he tell you that it would be better to work with him? Because it wasn't, did he say it was because
he can get me a deal? No. Well, I mean, I like the Dolphins, but he's just said he can get me a better deal on the house if I work with him. And because he's got so many listings, I could probably find another property if that one doesn't work out with him.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, he's right. You could find another one if it doesn't work out with him. But there's a couple things you need to understand there. First of all, when it is Johnny's listing, Johnny's duty is to his selling client, right? He's bringing those dolphins and he's doing all that stuff to bring people like you in there and to get you excited. But ultimately, his objective that he has a signed contract for is to bring the highest possible number and the most competition forward for his selling client. And when we talked before about the duty of a buyer agent to you when you've got a buyer representation agreement, the objective that we would have versus what Johnny would have if you went with him is completely the opposite. His objective is to sell the house. And absolutely, he would love to have you as his buyer or somebody else as a buyer, because in his mind, I mean, how do you think he pays for those dolphins, right? Like he's paying for dolphins and fancy marketing because, as I mentioned before, his seller is paying commission that's going to him and the buyer agent. And if he can be both of those, he might feel that he has some flexibility because he's making a bit more money. But what is most important to you is that think about what it is that his objective here. Think about what's driving him saying that to you. It's not because he now wants to represent your best interests and get you the best deal, because what does that do to the existing agreement and duty he has? Also, he has these open houses, right? You were there. I'm assuming you went to this one, right? You spoke to him at one of them, and you were
I swam with the dolphins.
You swam with the dolphins. I mean, you probably had some of the. Did he have one of those champagne pyramids?
Yeah. Oh,
and the naked dudes covered in sushi. Did he have that?
No.
Yeah. Okay. That was a different party.
Weird.
That was a different house. That might not have even been an open house. I don't even remember. But anyway, that lost my train of thought. The sushi.
I'm good. Okay, fine. I won't work with Johnny Moneybags. That's fine.
All I was going to say though, and I hate to cut off a client, and I would never do that in real life, but imagine how many other buyers are coming through that same thing that he's saying the same thing to, right? So not only are you in competition with his client, who he represents the interests of, you might be in competition with other people just like you that he's saying the same thing to. So just be aware of that. And understand,
what a slime ball.
Well, he's with a name like Johnny Moneybags. I don't know.
Okay. So I know I wanted my dad to come and be a part of this presentation, but he wasn't able to come because he's helping my brother find a house as well. But he wants to be there. Like, he's a pro. Like, he is like, he renovated our house. So he knows what to look for when we go see houses. So like, I really think he'd be really good to come along. Like, do you think that we could have him come along to all of our showings and just like, he's got some tools and like some flashlights and
flashlights are important.
Yeah. So I think like he'd be good to tell us whether or not it's a good house. Like, what do you think about that?
I mean, I'm happy to have your dad come along, and he's part of this decision with you. Is he, I didn't ask you, is he going to be on title with you? Or he's just wants to come along for the ride? Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm used to, and I've experienced having lots of people and their families coming through on showings, or even, once something's conditional. And by all means, I'm happy to, have him share his input on properties as well. I can tell you that my goal here is to take it a step further with you as well, though. We want to be able to respect the things that he sees. And I've seen, your background there. Did he install that mirror behind you? Because that's some pro work. So, I mean, he's clearly a solid renovator. He's seen some things and done some stuff. But part of what I want to make sure is that, no disrespect to him, we ensure that we bring professionals to the table for any of those questions that we've got. I've seen a lot of things as well, but I don't want to put such a big decision in the hands of opinion. I want to definitely listen to it. And if there's questions your dad has or things that might look like a risk, let's investigate them further. But at the same time, I do want to take the experience that I've had, the professionals I work with have had, and make sure that you get basically a second opinion. He might be that second opinion. If I see things as well, I'm happy to ask your dad what he thinks as well. But ultimately, I want your decision to be based on as comfortable and factual a position as possible. Because once a decision is made, I'm sure your dad will help you fix things if in fact something he saw may not have been 100% what he thought. But we really don't want to have to risk going down that road if we can get ahead of it.
Okay.
He's welcome to come, though. Your dad seems like a lovely man.
He's very nice, very educated on fixing things.
He's got flashlights. When he brings multiple flashlights to an inspection, that's a guy who does he wear like the belt when he comes?
Oh, yeah.
Holsters and stuff?
Like, is it okay if he goes up on the roof? And
during a showing, that's a little tough to do. I don't think that I'd recommend he brings the ladder, or like standing across the street with binoculars. It's a little bit creepy. But by all means, like when we and if we feel an inspection is appropriate, and in most cases I do, it's a tough market. So that's something we're going to talk about as well. But if we do feel that that's necessary, by all means, the inspector will bring a ladder and all the necessary tools. And your dad can come along on an inspection as well and ask all the questions he wants.
Could he climb up the inspector's ladder?
That depends on the inspector. My guess is no.
All right. Well, I mean, like if my dad is like he's the real deal. He's like a licensed contractor.
Okay.
Now he's changed his position. Is that okay too?
Has he been is it an online course? I guess he just finished while we're during this conversation.
He just finished. He just showed me look, he just showed me the certificate.
That's amazing. He just showed you the certificate. Good for him. Does he get like a bonus flashlight? You know what?
I hope so.
My position is that I am going to give you the best advice I can in making you comfortable. And if your dad is a licensed contractor and he knows this stuff and he's able to put you in a position of comfort where, we can, in some cases, waive an inspection, which will put us in a better situation. That's great.
Yeah.
I am not a licensed contractor, so he's got a leg up on me right now. But ultimately, that is going to be a decision that I put in front of you, and we'll decide through it together, depending on the situation, right? Different houses have different things, and a licensed contractor who just got his license might not be equipped to identify things like high-tech plumbing or risks of moisture or grading issues. So it really depends on where his expertise is, and we're going to be able to weigh our comfort with it in real time as we go. But by all means, that's great. He's a member of the team now as well.
Okay.
But I will not give him cash back.
Okay. Damn it. All right. One more question for you. So I know we talked about the deposit, and usually it's like, a pretty high amount. I only have $20. Sorry. $20 in my bank account right now. Like I could probably get a few hundred.
That's a tough situation.
But I have investments. Like, could I what do you recommend? Like I could probably get like a couple thousand, but it wouldn't be as much as you said we should need. So should I liquidate, or can I hold on to my investments? What's the best way to go there?
You're going to need more than $20. You're going to need more than a few $100s, and that's irrespective of the property we're going to look. Even if we're at the Nunavut property, you're going to need more than $20. And so if you have access to funds, which I suspect you must, given that, and you said you've got some investments, now is the time. This is where a lot of these things have been saving up, because this is the big purchase, right? So as recommended, we talked about, I mean, typically up to and including 5% of what our offer is going to be is what you're going to want to be prepared with. Certain listings are going to request different things. That doesn't hold you to them. But the amount of the deposit is one of the variables in an offer, other than price, that will lend itself to a stronger offer. So you can imagine if you have the same offer as somebody else, they have a $100,000 deposit and you've got a $10 coupon to McDonald's, it's not going to look as well. And the reason for the deposit is you're providing some assurance and security to the seller as well. Not just that you're serious, but it also protects them in the event that something does change. If you only have $20, that's all you're telling them you actually have right now, which might lend to question whether you can afford this place when it comes time to close. And if you don't close, they're keeping your $20, which isn't a great incentive for them. Now, there are legal ramifications for that as well, which could cost you a lot more. But it's really not a risk or a road that people want to go down.
Okay. Fine.
So liquidate.
Fine. I will. All right. Thank you.
Get your dad to start doing some jobs and putting some money aside with his new license.
All right. Thank you. Those were good. Thank you, everybody, for your comments and your different questions. You did a good job.
I will say the one question that was asked, which probably everyone might have noticed, that is tough, and it is how I answer it, and it's not how a lot of people will, is the private sale one.
Yeah.
I will never, ever, and this is just me, I will never, ever make a client fork out dollars for anything. And I get the argument, and I'm not opposed to the argument of somebody who explains that in their BRA, you might have a % there. And if something's not paying that, or it's paying nothing, that you negotiate with your client, or not even, or you tell them that this is what the contract represents. For me, though, my experience is, first of all, that there's few and far between private sales that are paying nothing. I haven't really run into that.
Right.
But in the event that they are a property like that, I would say it's such a fraction of a % that it's going to be the right property. When somebody's offering a property that way, like, this is where the value of realtors come in. Some private sales are okay, but when somebody's a private sale on Kijiji, with termites and no commissions and all that, you know what? If that's going to be the one bullet I take in my career, then it is what it is, right? I'm still going to provide the service I need to provide.
And I think the fact that you pointed out that part of the BRA, requires the buyer, not, you said it in a much better way that wasn't threatening, but like the buyer needs to notify you of any potential properties they're interested in. Like, I think just being knowledgeable of that and, taking the reins on any sort of negotiation with a private seller is the best way to go, as opposed to them like sneaking behind your back and seeing it for themselves.
Right.
So
That's it.
I mean, I think everybody does things differently. But the way you answered it, I mean, I think any further, it would probably scare them away. It would scare me away a little bit.
And Renata makes a good point there as well. Things are situational. Like, we did this in a very kind of static and firm situation, and that's not reality. Sometimes if you've got a buyer who's going to be listing with you, or you've got someone who already listed and you've already sold and now they're buying with you, there's situations where I will absolutely make adjustments, or make concessions or negotiate things with my clients as well. But taking a hard stance on commissions and being clear about things ahead of time is so important. I don't like leaving things to a let's figure it out when it happens kind of thing. And the same goes for, tough negotiations. If you're in month 4 and offer 500 with the same client, and you finally got the house they want, and there's no end in sight if you don't get this one, and it's down to 2 people, and if you cut your commission by a quarter point, they're going to get it. Right. Or if you go out there and say to them, you know what, if we go up another 10 grand, you're going to get it, and I'll help you out and I'll do some cash back. sometimes you take that plunge, but always understand the moment you take any plunge into anything, it becomes the new normal. That's what I believe, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Meaning the moment you offer it once, even if the next one is not as competitive, your client now knows it's something you're willing to do, and they're going to expect that you do it, right? And great point there. That's a good
I mean,
good thing. I don't know if you see that.
I like that. As a realtor, you don't have to do yoga to be flexible. Just be flexible to be a good one. And it's so true. Like, and I was going to add on to that, just the fact that, we talk to agents, and a lot of them want to put on this face as though, they're the best. They charge full commission every single time. They've never gotten into a situation where they discount, but it's your business, and it's a business decision that you make. As Renata pointed out, if you're listing their home as well, like, you're not going to give up money. Like, this is your income here. So you've got to make a decision for yourself and what you're comfortable with. And that's not always going to jive with what other agents in your brokerage or those that are around you. Just do what's best for you and what you're comfortable with, because everybody's comfort level is different. And especially as we, like, in the next 5-10 years, I think things are going to change dramatically for us in terms of potentially how we're paid or how things all work. So we've got to start adapting a little bit to the requirements. Obviously fight for, like, because you're worth it, but know where you want to draw the line and just stay where you're comfortable.
Absolutely. The numbers are humongous now too. Like, it's not lost on us that, with an average home price of $1 million in the GTA, $25,000 is a lot of money. $50,000 is a ton of money. Like, people don't make that in a year. And you do need to be empathetic and understanding to when clients will say things like that. I've had clients who say that to my face, right? I'm sure a lot of you have as well. I have clients who I've bought homes for who to this day insist I take them out and pay every time we go out for the rest of our lives because of all that money I made. Like, now I owe them a debt of gratitude for life. And these are friends of mine and all that. And I get it. You need to understand where they're coming from as well, but you can never put aside the fact that you're worth it. And there's a reason that they're choosing you. That's why we go through these steps. You get that out of the way at the beginning. You establish your value. You make a promise, because that's what the relationship is. It's a promise that you're going to do everything in your power to help them achieve their objectives that you've agreed on up front, right? And if you're promising that, the terms are the terms, right? I don't like the whole "it doesn't cost them anything" argument, because that's bullshit, right? It does cost them. Their money is the money going to the listing agent or the seller, which is then being paid back to you, right? They're just not writing you a check. Well, actually, they kind of are. It's through the lawyers, but anyway. It's just don't get into the cute stuff. Just be real with people. Have real conversations. Don't be afraid to cut if you're comfortable doing it, but don't be afraid to stick to your guns either. If that's what your business model is. If someone's not willing to pay you for it, let them go elsewhere, and maybe they will find a great deal. Maybe they'll go with Johnny Moneybags, right? And you'll never know if they overpaid or not, but you can take comfort in the fact that you stuck to your guns. Right. And they will overpay if they go with Johnny Moneybags. I love that guy. I don't know about you, but I literally had a picture in my head of the open house while I was talking about it. Like, I was walking through that party while we were talking. I'm like, wow.
Who would work with an agent called Johnny Moneybags? I mean, people.
You almost did. You almost did. I almost
did. You're right. Those dolphins got me. Anyway.
Hey, it was a safer way to do that rather than, not that anybody does dolphins, but, there's a lot of gimmicks out there. There's a lot of stuff out there, and to each their own, right? You've got to choose your path.
You do you, boo.
I was waiting for the boo.
The boo. All right. Well, thanks, guys. We went a little over. Our kids are probably immersed in some sort of television show, so we should probably check. Oh, hands up. Wait, Renata.
Questions.
Oh, she said bye.
Oh, that was like a wave.
She had hands up. Yeah, that was a wave. All right. Bye, guys. Have a good weekend.
Later, y'all. Level up.